And welcome to a special edition of Coaching with the Bible, a pre-New Year, pre-Rosh Hashanah edition of Upon Review. But this is not us reviewing the fifth book of Deuteronomy. It's not us reviewing the completion of the 5 books of the Torah of the Bible, because we're not yet done. This is an idea relating to the upcoming holiday. And let's begin with the following question. How often have you reviewed your own actions? I don't necessarily mean in a work environment or public forum. I mean privately, personally, reviewing your actions, your behaviors, your interactions, your relationships, the words you say, and really have gone to town on yourself for yourself with respect to the idea of improving. I would guess that most of us have not done it, ever, in a formal manner. Occasionally, when we've done something wrong, we'll think about it, and maybe we'll apologize, and we'll feel bad, and then we'll apologize. But an overall sort of, schematic, strategic approach to ourselves, I imagine most of us have never done it. I have not done it until this year, actually. That's what I want to discuss with you today. The beginning of this week's reading in the Torah, Parashat Ki Tavo, relates to this point. At the beginning of the reading, the Bible exhorts us, commands us in Commandments 606 and 607, which means we're closing in on the end of the list of 613 commandments, tells us that on the occasion of 2 commandments, the bringing of the first fruits to Jerusalem and the separation of the tithe, that we are to make utterances along with them, that part of the responsibility of the commandment is stating something. In the case of the first fruit, it's a listing of verses that relates to sort of how we got here, how we got to this moment in Jerusalem. And with respect to the tithing, it's a statement that acknowledges that I've done the commandment correctly, that I have separated properly, and that nothing remains in my possession that actually belongs to the tithe that is to be separated. So there are utterances, statements that are to be made with respect to our commandments, and that's really important. It's an admittance of right. And typically speaking, we're more aware of admitting the things that we've done wrong, or stating the things that we've done wrong. We may not do that publicly or in front of other people, but if we had to ask ourselves about the things that are wrong with us or the things we don't do well versus the things that we do well, we are quicker to getting to a list of 5 things we don't do well or 5 flaws or failings of our own, more than we are able to quickly rattle off the things that are really great about us. Whether that's humility or that's sort of difficulty in understanding who we are and what we are, whatever that is, that's the truth. And so the Bible commands us that we have to admit that we did these right. And I heard many years ago, a friend of mine made the following comment, and I saw it in an article somewhere else, that normally when we think about admitting anything in the commandment sense, it's typically speaking around the time of Yom Kippur, when we're admitting to all of the different sins and violations that we have done. And here the Bible is telling us to admit when we've done something right. What's also interesting about these statements is they are to some degree retrospective. We talked once early on in Coaching with the Bible this year about the idea of having perspective, being retrospective. And really what happens here is that you have effectively completed the action of the commandment, and now you're making the statement. And the statements are retrospective. How did we get here? My father was a sojourner, and we were in Egypt, and we were taken out, and God brought us here. We're reflecting on how we got here. We're reviewing what took place. When we're talking about the tithe, same thing. I'm speaking about what I just did, what I've completed, and now I'm reviewing out loud and publicly that which I have done right. It's a review. It's important. The Sefer HaChinuch, the book that lists out all the different commandments, it does so, in this case, tells us that the gift of speech, the ability to inspire through words, is why we are given this commandment, to inspire us and to remind us and to teach us about all that is good in the world and all that God has given us in this world, all that we have benefited from this world, and to speak that out loud. But all that's happening in review. And so I'll ask the question again, how often is it that you or I ever do a review? And so what I did this year for myself, and I'm going to share with you as well, is to put together what I'll call the annual review of 5781, the Jewish year, calendar year. And borrowing from the concept that we are probably all aware of with respect to work, when we do an annual performance review, or from school, whether it was a report card or an assessment test or whatever it is, when we're basically measured on our performance, let's bring that into our own personal lives, into our personal spaces, and really do it there as well. Because the truth is, in work, so either we have a boss or we're the boss and we're setting goals and we're setting out what we want to accomplish over the course of time, because money's involved and our livelihood is involved. And so we want to see how people are performing, and we don't want to be wasting resources on people who are not performing. So we have performance metric reviews. It's a great idea. But we don't necessarily do those things for ourselves, and therefore we don't necessarily hold ourselves accountable or responsible for the things that we do accomplish and things that we don't accomplish. And we're also not able to fully understand or appreciate why it is that we don't progress over the course of a year and year to year. And we're wondering year to year, well, why haven't we gotten anywhere? When we heard the speech and the sermons in the synagogue last year or the year before or 5 years ago, exhorting us and inspiring us and motivating us to change and to do better, and we're all, yeah, rah, rah, we want to, we never do. And the question is why? And part of the reason why is because we never really do this exercise of personal review. Many years ago, a rabbinic friend and colleague of mine called it a spiritual. If you have a physical when you go to the doctor, maybe you should go to the rabbi for a spiritual. The idea that you should review your spiritual life on an annual basis. Not a crazy idea, I think. So here, the what is the idea of doing a personal annual review. The why is because, typically speaking, we're zooming through life and there's so much happening that we're simply not paying attention enough to all the things that we're accomplishing, all the things that are happening, all the ways that we've improved, and then we're not able to actually build on them to see year to year what we've actually accomplished. So the why of this really allows us to, A, tap in to celebrate the things that we've actually accomplished this year, because probably a lot of good actually has happened, even in a tough year for a lot of people, even if it's highlighted mostly by something super negative in our own lives. The chances that around that negative or that failure, quote unquote, are a lot of accomplishments and positive and successes. And so we have to take a moment to celebrate them. A year has 8,700 plus hours, and probably we don't remember most of the things that happen. The second thing with respect to why is that we can find many areas where we've actually improved, or where we can improve if we simply took the time to think about it. Skill sets, experience, whatever those things may be that we've developed or didn't even realize that we developed, that we can really then go further with. Number three really is the idea of connecting the dots. There are so many things that happen to us in the course of a year that are actually similar or related to each other. So whether they're experiences or there are reactions or our being proactive in certain circumstances, but we never connect the dots. And so doing the review gives us the chance to really connect the dots about what it is that we're doing in our own lives. And lastly, in terms of the why, it really helps us set better goals. If we do want to improve, we have to set realistic goals, we have to set better goals, we have to set smarter goals. We have to know how to then build a task list that helps us get to the success that we want to see in our own lives and the improvements that we want to see in our own lives. So what I did is I put together an annual review based on, 10, 12 different articles and pieces that I saw different people who built annual reviews for themselves, shared them publicly online. And I thought that this was a good exercise. I did it for myself, and I learned a ton about myself, which was good. It took time to really delve deep in the 5 sections I'll mention in just a moment, and really learn about myself and really helping myself with the next step, which is setting really great goals for the future. So how do you do this? Is you take this tool, it's a document, you can either print it out or not print it out, whatever it is, it's up to you, and then set aside time and space for yourself to do the work, between an hour and 2 hours, to really do this work on yourself. Set aside some materials. If you're printing it out, it's pen and paper. If it's simply just on a laptop, then again, having the laptop available to you, uninterrupted, without distraction. Bring some materials with you that are really important, whether that's a calendar from the past year or a scrapbook or events that you participated in, or in advance of knowing that you're going to do this, downloading certain posts and certain documents that you wrote or certain things that you presented, so you can sort of see and really review them in real time while you're doing it. If it helps you, bring along another person. Not that they necessarily have to do the review at the same time, but they can be sort of your muse, or they can be the examiner, for lack of a better term. Somebody's going to ask you all the questions and question what it is that you write for your answers in this document, to really get clarity and to really crystallize the language that you really want. And so in this personal annual review, I have 5 sections. Section number 1 is gratitude. Really want people to spend the time being grateful and appreciative of the things that have gone on in their lives in the past year. Section 2 is accomplishments. When did you win? Where did you win? How did you win this year? Section 3 is quote unquote the failure section. You'll see why I call it the failure section when you get there, and why I put it in quotes every time that I mention the word failure. Section 4 is the lessons learned. What are we extracting? What are we pulling out from our wins, from our gratitude, from our quote unquote failures that are going to help propel us forward? Lessons learned. And number 5 is an immediate goal set. I'm not having an expectation that we're going to set a full set of goals for the year, or even the metrics, or even whatever it is that it takes to then build that entire goal set. That takes a lot more time than this effort, but an immediate sense of action items based on what were gleaned and extracted and pulled out from this exercise. And then I want to hear from you, because I want to know how this worked. Did this work for you? Did separating things out into different kinds of environments, thinking about it with respect to whether it was work or personal productivity or health or finances or relationships or learning or spirituality, where were the areas where you had those improvements, where you had the wins, where you had the accomplishments, or on the other side, where you didn't succeed, where you failed, and why? And really take the time to think it through. It's okay to ruminate on this. I wouldn't ruminate too long on the failure section, but it's important to spend the time in there thinking about the things that worked, the things that didn't work, looking at the connected dots, looking at the things that connect, and to admit, even if not publicly, but at least to yourself, why is this happening? Or with a friend or a spouse, someone you trust implicitly and deeply, you can say, I was looking back over my year, and over the course of 12 months, X and Y and Z happened over and over and over again. And I don't know why. Can you help me figure out why? When certain people came up to me, I reacted negatively. Why? Can you help me why? Understand the why. When I had to do a certain project or had to present publicly, my reaction was negative. I did poorly. I didn't perform. I didn't succeed, but I don't know why. Can you help me figure out why? And then once you've figured out the why, you can work on the next steps towards success, whether that's an automated tool, whether that's a task list, whether it's some sort of an accountability measure that really helps you succeed in the future, any of those things that can really work to help you really get to where you need to go. The concept of the annual review is not to make us feel bad about ourselves, but it is about making the next year the most productive year of our lives, to make the coming year the most impactful year of our lives. Whether, again, that's in financial space, that's at work, that's in our personal relationships, that's at home, that's with our spouses, with our children, with ourselves. We could go on and on about that last one. With our families, wherever that may be. to really take the time to really develop, to really review, to use what it is that the Bible is exhorting us and commanding us and what God wants from us. When we think about introspection and self-awareness, like we talked about last week, and the idea of the process that we're on, the life that we're leading, the idea that we're moving forward or moving ahead, we're moving up, that we're going next level, that we're improving each and every day, each and every week, each and every month, and ultimately each and every year. So good luck with the annual review. I look forward to hearing from you. My email is at the end of it. Definitely take a moment, shoot me an email, let me know. And also, and I never do this, but I should, I'm going to do it here. If you thought this exercise was valuable for you, or you think this will be really valuable for somebody else, share the link to the podcast, to this special edition, and the link to the document. I really want to, I'm not going to know anyone's answers. It's private and personal. But I really want to hear from people also to know whether or not this was actually meaningful for them. So this is a special edition of Coaching Through the Bible. There will be another one later this week for the actual portion of the week, Ki Tavo. Thanks so much for listening. Talk to you soon.